This is the final piece to my portfolio, my reflection video on the course Literature and the Other Arts, and I'm just going to be going through my portfolio and reflecting on it as a whole and kind of tying it all together in one final video. So for this course we used our course website, Boost Literature, where we kept all of our assignments and viewed our classmates' assignments and provided and received feedback. In this course we had 4 main projects: our sound list, audio essay, our 2 versions of our e-poem, a live and then an edited one, and then our final video on the novel The Road. To put all of our projects into one place in an organized way, we used the Scalar website. Here you have an overview on how we use sound and video in literary studies, and then if you click over here you have everyone's portfolio. For my first page of my portfolio, it's similar to a cover letter. I centered it around this quote by Sir Peter Blake, "New technology is common, new thinking is rare." And I just found this really interesting because I had never thought about how much technology evolves, but it seems the way that we are tested in education really has remained very much the same. So that's kind of my focus throughout this cover letter aspect. And then I get down later in the cover letter to talking about the project specifically. And then there's a table of contents to each of my projects. The first is the sound list. For my sound list, I picked Jay Gatsby from the novel The Great Gatsby because he's one of my favorite characters from any novel, and I think he's also one of the most interesting and dynamic characters in modern literature. So the way I formatted my sound list was we had to pick 6 sounds that embodied a character, their growth in the novel, and their overall characterization. So the way I attempted to do that was looking at his arc from beginning to end and kind of dividing each aspect of this arc into a category and using those as subtitles before each of my paragraphs and then before the sound. So going through, I used Humble Beginnings, Head Over Heels, The Roaring Twenties, Close But Not Close Enough, Crashing Down in Flames, and An Inevitable Demise. In the feedback I received, the main thing was extending some of my analysis a little bit deeper and also developing the 2 songs that I selected. One thing that was very easy to get caught up in is analyzing the sounds very deeply because there was more of a point to prove, whereas I thought a lot of the songs kind of spoke for themselves, so I left a lot of the interpretations up to the reader, I guess. So my main focus in doing revisions was going back and correcting that. I think that made my sound list a whole lot stronger and ended up being one of the projects I feel like I did the best on. My next project in the portfolio is my audio essay. In this assignment, we were supposed to select a poem that we either really enjoyed or spoke to one of our personal experiences or a cultural concern and analyze this poem in an audio essay. For my audio essay, I selected 3 Shel Silverstein poems from the collection Where the Sidewalk Ends and explained how these poems, while at first glance they might seem like children's poems, do carry larger meanings and life lessons when you go back and read them as a more mature adult. So in my original Uh, it wasn't very long. It was kind of choppy in that it needed a smoother introduction, and more variety in terms of narration. I read most of the poems with the exception of alternating with one of my friends for a narration. So that kind of gave it a monotone feeling. So in my revisions, I went to extend the poem, the essay, a little bit. I did more analysis after each poem, added to my introduction and conclusion, and also changed up the narration and included more voices and added variety for the essay, which I think strengthened it a lot. Also, in the assignment, we were required to add a written version of our essay, which also helped me realize where I could add some smoother transitions and add some more content and where it was really needed. Seeing it written versus hearing it out loud is very different and also helpful in realizing where you can make improvement. So, in doing revisions, I started with my annotated version of the audio essay, um, added things, and then re recorded it, which really helped me with my revisions. All in all, this was definitely the most challenging project to me. I hated hearing my voice over and over again recorded, and it was really hard for me to work Audacity. I thought it was kind of a tedious program, but by the time I finished, I'd really gotten the hang of it, and am really glad and pleased at the way that it turned out. The third project in my portfolio is the e-poem. In this assignment, we had to make two separate videos in which we selected a poem or wrote our own and then composed them either for the first one on our computer screen live or for the second one in Camtasia as an edited e-poem. So for my e-poem, I used the same poem for each, and I picked another Shel Silverstein poem, this one with a little more serious of a theme called The Perfect High, about the death of Shel Silverstein's son when he overdosed. This is one of my favorite poems, if not my favorite poem of all time, and it was really fun to work with it in an e-poetry format. So for my performance or live e-poem, I used a big canvas of videos with my background set to a surprise at the end. And I started with clicking the audio to start with the narration of the poem, and then with the song in the background. And then as the videos would become relevant, I would hit play, and then when they concluded, I would minimize them. And by the end of the e-poem, you could see the entire background on my computer, which ended up being a quote from the poem and a picture I took backpacking this summer. So it involved the scenery from the poem as well as a quote that carried the theme, the larger theme, and then in the poem. So when it came time to do the edited version, I wanted to use the same videos I did in the live version because I think they worked well, but this time I changed the way I was using my canvas. And to be honest, I really was not pleased at all with the final product. I don't think it worked as well. There was too much black space on the screen, and when I received my feedback, that definitely was reflected as well. So when it came time to edit it for the final version, I tried to combat that with adding quotes on addiction and words that carried motifs in the poem on these blank and open spots on the canvas. I still actually didn't like the final product as much as my live poem, but I definitely think it is an improved version from the original edited one. This project I found to be fairly challenging, but it was also extremely rewarding, especially when I got a final product of the live one that I was pleased with. It definitely taught me to think more outside the box and how to use my desktop as a canvas and all these different ways that it can be incorporated into an artistic but still analytical exploration of a poem, which I thought was very interesting and very cool. My final project in my BoostLit portfolio is an analysis video on The Road by Cormac McCarthy. In this project, we also used Camtasia. In my video, my main focus was proving that while Cormac McCarthy's view of the end of the world is very cynical and very doubtful on the future of humanity, he's not the only one that carries this very extreme view. In fact, there are many, even outside of authors, singers, artists, poets that carry the same pessimistic view. So I wanted to make connections between Cormac McCarthy's view of humanity as well as some other people in today's world. In doing that, I used a quote from a song, a poem, and a quote from a short story. That was the audio in my video, and the video were scenes from the road layered over GoPro footage that I took walking through woods near campus here. The biggest piece of feedback, which I definitely agreed with, was that the connection was lacking between the audio and the video. So to combat this in my revised version, I started with a very clear analysis and introduction, PowerPoint style, and then faded this out, made the connection very clear, what I was trying to prove. Right here by saying all these people carry the same view on the end of humanity. Humanity is an artifact, and then fading this out and getting started with my video on the road. Another way I made this connection was by incorporating direct quotes from the novel into the video, so that it was clear that this video was about the road, but it was also about these other historical figures' view on the end of humanity. All in all, this is the project I'm proudest of the revised version anyway. I think that it really is a good culmination of all the skills that I learned throughout the semester with Camtasia and just developing a really aesthetically pleasing final product. I think that I incorporated sound and video very nicely together in the final product of this one, and that's why I'm most proud of it. And looking back at my portfolio as a whole, I'm really proud of everything I accomplished this semester. I think my growth was exponential from my first sound list to my final video on the road. I think I truly understood the importance of sonic and audio and visual elements in composing all of these projects. I think it offers a platform that you just don't have access to in traditional essays and tests. And looking back on my cover letter, I think keeping my portfolio in mind, I think that quote is even more relevant. New technology is common, new thinking is rare. So I was able to use all this different technology in my portfolio, but I also feel like I was able to analyze and get as much out of every assignment as I would have a traditional exam or essay or research paper. I think that in society today that we're still geared so much more towards these traditional testing platforms when really we can get just as much out of these different new and innovative kinds of ways to test our knowledge on a subject.